one lovely bit.
And welcome back to Jeff Koinange, live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski here with an exclusive interview with lead counsel, make that Queen's counsel, Karim Khan. He's never lost a case, and the tweets are coming in thick and fast, although Karim doesn't have a Twitter handle, but you all are tweeting in, and you're saying, Nelson says, you cannot make an innocent man guilty, and if you do, then that's miscarriage of justice. I love Karim Khan. Kage says, I have no intention of law breaking, but this Karim Khan will be my lawyer. Peter Masinde says, amazing to learn that the bald-headed counsel has never lost a case. Being Marianne says, is he single? I'm just saying, I'm just reading the tweets. Eric Monene says, ask Karim Khan to describe the victory in just 5 words. Karim.
Why 5 words? Why 5 words after 6 years? Already you're being tough with us. Huh? But I think the reason you don't do Twitter, either you get very big-headed or you get paranoid. So I think that's a good reason not to
be on.
do too much Twitter.
Yeah, but okay, you consider this a victory, Karim, but on a serious note, Bensouda could come back.
Yeah.
She could come back and retry this whole thing.
Lawyers don't view things as win or lose, or you shouldn't. I think you should be quite humble enough, whether you're a prosecutor or defense. It really is about serving the ends of justice. You shouldn't be saying, I've won this, I've lost that. You try your best to be an officer of the court, to prosecute fairly, and if you defend ethically. And you let the dices fall where they may, believing that there is this thing called justice has its quality that's greater than human frailties, that more times than not gets it right. And I think that's what we try to do. We try to defend, be a voice for, in this case, His Excellency William Ruto, to investigate honestly, to challenge evidence ethically, and believe that justice will be done.
Yeah.
And, at the moment, it's comforting to know that the judges who've reviewed the evidence accept that the case brought by the prosecution was so weak, has such gaping holes, that even to the low standard at half-time, no reasonable bench of judges could possibly convict beyond reasonable doubt.
So
and I think that's good.
Yeah, what would make Bensouda come back? What would make, because before the break I was saying Rule 69-4 or something. Could she come back with that? Could she come back on another route?
You know, Fatou Bensouda, I've got a lot of personal affection for her. She's a good woman. It may not be a fashionable thing to say in Kenya, but I have a lot of personal regard for her. She's not made of the same, cut from the same mould as Ocampo. She's a good human being. But, a prosecutor, you're dependent upon what you're told. It's a massive office, so many investigations, and the reality is this case wasn't investigated. And I think my own view, unfortunately, is people around her are trying to make the narrative not their failings to investigate, not their own deficiencies in the prosecution, but about extraneous factors. And that really is not going to help the institution gain credibility, not only in Kenya, but internationally. This isn't the first case where the judges have said lying witnesses have come forward. Christine van Weingart, who also sat in the President's case, talked about negligence in the prosecution's office, systemic failings in the prosecution's office. In the Lubanga case, she said that prosecution witnesses and the other judges should be investigated for Article 70. Why is Article 70 only used as a stick to beat witnesses who don't toe the line of the prosecution? Why isn't Article 70 used, Jeff, to deal with witnesses, prosecution witnesses who lied? You'll remember I've said ICC, not now, I mean for the last years, ICC should be given space to do its work. The Deputy President has said that. We're not scared of the truth. Witnesses should come forward for the prosecution or for the defense to speak the truth. They're welcome. Whether they incriminate Ruto or we don't care, because we know the picture, we know the truth. But all witnesses should have a concern if they think they can lie with impunity.
Yeah.
And Article 70 should be dealt, justice should be blind. Lady Justice, with a blindfold, with Wayne's, should be blind. It shouldn't be, we'll attack you if you say you lied to us because you are prosecution witnesses, and if you say your story is not true and you gave your story for benefits or for other reasons.
Yeah.
But if you are if you're a prosecution witness and you've lied, we don't care. We're going to just say, judges can say, you're not truthful, not reliable, but no consequences. No one should have the arrogance to come before the court and pervert the administration of justice. And I think the Office of the Prosecutor needs to look at its policy in relation to using Article 70 in an even-handed manner. Going back to your question, you can't bring the dead back to life. I mean, you can't, Jeff. You can't bring a... this case was a corpse to start with. It's the Walking Dead. Kept on an artificial respirator and mechanically moved. But it wasn't a live beast, it was dead. To bring it back from the grave a second time really is beneath Fatu Bensouda. And I know they've tried it, because talk about Rule 68, there's a lot of misinformation about Rule 68. They have tried to bring the dead back to life. Because, I mentioned in the break, Rule 68 is a distraction. The prosecution said they could prove this case beyond reasonable doubt, even without the Rule 68 statements. That's what they said. Didn't say in court, it was in a filing, considered. The judge have said, nothing doing. You haven't proved your case, even to the low standard. So you're wrong there, mate, you're wrong. But what were these Rule 68 statements? They were statements of individuals who then came before the court and they said, look, we lied. Or they said, this is the truth, because they're under oath. They were not under oath before, Jeff. They were just speaking to the prosecution without a video camera, without a tape recorder, in a closed room, maybe with a few good Kenyan samosas and a nice cup of tea, God knows, and they tell a story. Nobody checking the account. And they've come before the court under oath and said, that's not true. Now, we begged the prosecution. These witnesses were declared hostile, and we begged the prosecution, please show that they lied when they're saying their first account is false. Try to show, because you can cross-examine them, they've been declared hostile. Yeah. Try to show the first account was true. Prosecution didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? Why? They didn't do it because they couldn't, because the first account was false. Now, one example, one key prosecution witness said he attended a meeting with William Ruto and Mr. Latodo. Latodo was, he says in his statement, his Rule 68 statement, that the prosecution says the gold standard, non-videoed, not tape recorded, no defense present, closed doors, nice cup of tea and a samosa, God knows what happened, leading questions. They say that's the gold standard. What is this? The
Headline,
Nation newspaper, 2000. Latodo, Member of Parliament for West Pokot, died in 2000. You won't believe it. If I said it without this, people wouldn't believe that the prosecution tried to bring the dead back to life. Not just a case. They tried to bring... They swallowed a lie that a witness who had been in the grave, rest in peace, since 2000, a well-known Kenyan Member of Parliament, the only Latodo ever to have been elected for West Pokot constituency. Check the register. I'm not making it up, Jeff. That he was with William Ruto in 2007. None the worse for wear. I mean, I don't know what medicine he was on. But I mean, it really is quite magical, isn't it, really?
But what does that say about the prosecution?
It shows they were suckered. They, as I said, there was, at my opening, I said that there was a rotten underbelly to this case, which the prosecution swallowed hook, line and sinker. And I asked the judge, I said, please, I'm counsel, of course I've appeared in other cases, but I'm not saying this as some kind of rhetoric. I'm not a hired hand. I don't view myself as the hired hand or the hired help of William Ruto or Ambassador Mathar or any client. I have this belief, and my team has this belief, in the pride of being a member of the bar and your duty to justice. And I say things because I believe them, based not on emotional conviction, but based on investigations and experience. This is not our first rodeo. The prosecution, in their rush for Ocampo to name the Sexy Six, the Ocampo Six, to make a name for himself, to have the red carpet rolled out by His Excellency Mwai Kibaki and treated like a head of state, identified people first, investigated later. And how can you build a case against people that are innocent? The way you do it is by witnesses who know what you want, willing buyer, willing seller. A prosecution, maybe negligence, maybe ineptitude, maybe a rush, but a lack of scrutiny. With my witnesses, the way I do it, I don't take their accounts. I can be deceived. I'm not perfect. How do I check? I cross-reference, I investigate, I will check with other witnesses. Are they telling me a pack of lies? Are they telling me a story so I'm embarrassed in court? Of course, it can happen. Yeah. You double-check your story. The prosecution by Google searches, could have checked some witnesses' accounts were wrong. By going to, you don't need international cooperation requests. Go to the Nairobi Library, it's free of charge. Look at the newspapers that are there and check about who were members of parliament, when did they die, when were they alive. If they're in meetings, use that as a yardstick. Is your witness telling the truth, possibly? Or is it clearly an outright, outrageous lie like this?
Okay, moving forward. There's a story tonight in one of the stations saying Bensouda wants 3 suspects extradited to The Hague, amongst them John Baraza and a couple of others. Why?
Well, that's for Fatou Bensouda. I don't have a brief on those cases. But one thing I've said is that nobody should have the arrogance to feel they can interfere with the administration of justice, whether for the prosecution or for the defense. The findings of the judges, both the presiding judge, Judge Fremer, and unanimously in the Rule 68 decision, all of them say there is no evidence that's been presented by them, and a massive amount of evidence was presented by the prosecution. No evidence, not a sliver of it, to show that William Ruto, His Excellency William Ruto or Joshua Arap Sang were involved in anything untoward. In relation to anything else, the prosecution must do their job, but they must do it fairly. And my point has always been, Article 70 must be applied equally. Whether if somebody is lying for the prosecution, also prosecute those people. You cannot pervert the administration of justice. And the reality is, Judge Christine van Wijngaard, in the Lubanga case, and the trial chamber in Lubanga, told the prosecution, investigate prosecution witnesses in that case for perjury. Investigate. They gave another decision, say, look, we gave this decision months ago, nothing's happened. So Article 70 must be viewed blindly. In other courts, there are independent amicus prosecutors brought in. If, for whatever reason, there's not institutional will for the prosecutor to look at Article 70 equally, we need to get independent prosecutors. You know, in this case, I spoke to the deputy prosecutor, and I can say it publicly now, and I've said it in court, in fact, so it's already in the court record. I met with Dato Shamla Alagendra, the deputy prosecutor, and I had dealt with a prosecution witness that I said clearly was lying. I had my investigations to show the account was a pack of lies. They were transporting events from 1992 that took place to 2007, and you could prove that by land records and so much. So I went to the deputy prosecutor, James Stewart, who's a good man. I personally get on very well with him, and said, in the cafeteria of the ICC, I said, James, look, I've got this. It's an ongoing case. I'm not asking for an independent amicus prosecutor from outside. I'll give it to you and Fatou Bensouda on your word that you deal with it with an outside lawyer. You don't share my investigations with the trial team. I thought they would bite my hand off. I'm giving them a dossier. Either I'm telling a pack of lies, and it's all rhetoric, it's all noise, these are honest witnesses, and I'm just saying, maligning them unjustly. In which case, expose me, take the evidence, investigate. Do you know what? I was flabbergasted. I was so disappointed that a good man like that, and he's a good man, said, no, we're not going to take it. We're not going to accept that offer.
He refused.
We'll take it and we'll share it with our prosecution trial team. We're not going to review it, only me and the prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, with an independent person. We're not going to do it. We'll just leave all of that for the end of the trial. You know, and yet, in the middle of the trial, there's Baraza and there's other warrants. Why double standards? Why are you willing to investigate Article 70 when you think witnesses, somehow are hurting your case, and you're not prosecuting people that have lied in a bid to help your case? That's not right.
Okay, Karim, I'm going to take another break, come back and ask you this question. Within a trial like the ICC, there is no statute of limitation. They can go and re-prosecute this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. There's no statute of limitation. What's going to happen? Are you looking for an acquittal? Are you going to do that? Is that your next step? What's your next move? And this country moving forward, we have an election 17 months away, Karim. If there is violence, if there is a runoff, what's to stop violence from happening? Because ICC seem to not have performed this time around. Nobody's going to be afraid of the ICC this time around. Think about that.
Yeah, I'll think about that.
We'll take a break. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag Ruto Sang Free. And we are exclusively...
That sounds good, doesn't it, Jeff?
It sounds very good.
Thank you.
Get a Twitter handle, okay?
You can handle it, my friend.
You owe me, by the way. You owe me.
I do.
Use my videos.
All the time, and I will say that when we come back, that you've been... The reason I
No,
gave
no,
you...
don't say that.
I will say that.
No, don't say that. Keep
I will say that, guys.
Jeff Koinange live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.
I'm starting with that, by the way.